Hi, with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to look at the issue of the pay for the diversity or the people in the diversity department, diversity managers and diversity directors, vice presidents of diversity, or diversity officers, and then compare their pay to the average pay that's paid in the company for the other sort of job roles in the company. Some of them you'd think would be quite well paid, but what I'm finding is that diversity officers and the people in the diversity department generally are paid well above what the average is around the company. Now, we can take out the bottom paid people like the floor cleaners and the parking lot attendants and that sort of thing, or the receptionists, and focus on the professional class within the company. So now here's an engineering firm. It's a decent size, I guess. Probably 1,000 employees, give or take. Now, here's an engineer with 5 years. They're advertising for an engineer with 5 years experience. This is civil engineering, and they want to pay 90,000, plus some bits and pieces. Well, even the entry level diversity officer is paid 50% more than that. I mean, I'll just use round numbers here to illustrate the point. If the engineer is paid $100, the diversity officer, mind you, is paid $145. So the civil engineer, after 5 years at university and a number of years experience, this is a guy who's going to be building bridges and roads and so on. He's getting $100, but the diversity officer, who only needs a two-year cut down degree in gender studies or sociology or something like that, as long as it's a degree that teaches hatred of white civilization and white men, then sort of who cares? But that person's paid $145. Now it's actually 147 if you do the comparison exactly, but say $145 as versus 100 for the engineer. Now clearly the engineer offers vastly more value to society and the common good in terms of any bridge that he builds and designs and builds, supervises the building of. That's going to benefit anyone that uses that bridge, drives their car or truck across it. Trucks carrying maybe essential groceries and food and other items to wherever. The road is going to be used by, again, ambulances taking people to hospital and so on. So the value to society that the engineer delivers is vastly in excess of what the diversity officer delivers. So why is a diversity officer relative to the engineer paid so very well, given that it requires almost no experience and it requires some flim-flam bullshit degree where nobody, degrees where nobody ever fails. So what's the diversity officer doing? Well, the diversity officer is an ideological. They're pushing the ideological globalist agenda, causing racial division in Western society and causing white men to be unemployed and so on. So they're doing, they're achieving the globalist objective, piece by piece, death by 1,000 cuts type, but they're delivering and enabling the globalist objective. So they will get well paid to do that. And all the big companies and government departments in the West and the public service, they're all on board with this crap. So that's why. So these people are being paid for their services to globalist ideology, not being paid because they're doing a job. All they have to do is look at each department or each section or each work group, whatever it might be, and say, well, is there a majority of white males there? And if there is, okay, well, we have to do something. We have to have so many brown people, so many black people, so many women, so many lesbians, so many trans. That's all they're doing. And all they do is advocate for the dismissal of white people, and particularly white men, and to be replaced with unqualified, non-straight white males. And that's their only job. Now, maybe reasonable people wouldn't do that. Reasonable sort of person, any sort of business perspective, go, hey, hold on a minute. This is going to be harmful to the company. It's going to be harmful to the shareholders, harmful to the customers in reduced piss poor service. It's going to be harmful to anybody involved here. Why would you do that? But they don't want people to think that way. They want people that they have to hire people who hate straight white males, who hate Western society, who hate Western culture. And those people will do those things because they think, well, okay, there's collateral damage here. Customers might get upset and that, but really, who cares? Because ideologically, what we're doing is pure. We're creating a nirvana. We're creating a fucking ideological paradise. Who cares if there's some dead bodies along the way? It doesn't matter. We're pursuing that ideology. And so that's the attitude they want. And I should sort of, just going back some years into the divorce courts, and divorce courts had moved into quite a vicious phase when they were, openly, well, not openly, but they were advocating internally that they had to really ramp it up and crush straight white men. And, women who decide to become lesbians should be richly rewarded with the assets of their former husband, straight white male. And so it was very, very ideological. And when men were being questioned in court, do you own a gun? Have you ever beaten a woman up? Yeah, you're denying it, are you? Are you trying to say you have? It's very ideological and totally one-sided. So in order to produce that outcome, they had to focus on gender studies academics and gender studies students. They had to go for the people who had been trained to hate straight white men. They had to do that. They had to populate the courts, the divorce courts, with those people in order to get the ideological outcome they wanted. And really, this is the same sort of thing. When we look at, say, the Soviet Union or even China or any of the East European countries in the Soviet orbit during the Cold War, teachers of ideology or political, what they call it, political economy or political science, can't remember the name of the subject now, but teachers who taught that were the best paid. They not only were better paid than doctors and lawyers and any of those other people, they were better paid than other teachers because they were spreading the ideology and inculcating, the communist propaganda into the minds of students, school children. So they were the best paid, and I knew a guy who'd been an ideology teacher in the Soviet Union, and they'd migrated to Australia, and I asked him, did you believe any of the crap? He said, well, of course not. I didn't believe any of it. It was all bullshit. We all knew it was bullshit, and they knew that we knew it was bullshit, but that was never said. He said that he taught ideology and the Soviet system was great and the West was evil, bad, and decadent, and the whole thing that he was required to, and he did it with the requisite fervor, so people would assume that he's one of us. And he said in return he got a better, not so much a better income because he didn't really have consumer goods to spend it on, but he got like a better apartment, a better car to drive. He had access to better shops, that sort of thing. So he was richly rewarded for doing it, and all he did was just push Soviet propaganda. That's all he did, but he was rewarded for that. So you need to see diversity officers in the same light. Now, I've gone through various government departments and private sector companies. I'm finding that for a comparable position outside of the diversity department, it's pretty consistent that the diversity people are being paid more than a comparable, if you like, position in the line management or the operational side of the business. So, say a chief civil engineer is being paid, say 20%, 15 to 20% less than the chief diversity officer. If you're looking at executive vice president of diversity, which usually would be a bigger company or a bigger government department, if you look at that, then the salary is starting to pull level at about that. The salaries are sort of approximately equal at that level of executive management. So, say executive director of diversity at a university, could be paid like between $400,000 and $500,000 a year, for example. So that's pretty good. So if you look at, say, the the assistant deputy dean of the entire university. So that may be sort of roughly comparable. They're paid, about the same, maybe a little bit more, but about the same. But if you look at, say, head of the Department of History, or head of the Department of Engineering, or head of the, they're not paid as much as the Director of Diversity is paid. And in that case, the Director of Diversity could be getting, again, 15 to 20% more than those other guys. Even those other people, the head of engineering, the engineering department, in terms of teaching students, any form of engineering, civil, electrical, mechanical, whatever. Those heads aren't paid as much as the Director of Diversity, which seems astonishing to me. But now, if you look at, say, student activism officers and things like that, again, in university, they're paid very well. They're paid better. Like, say, again, some of those guys are being paid double what a 5-year qualified civil engineer would getting. And they're again, they're just student activists. They're just there to rustle up banner waving crowds on demand. And for that, they're very well rewarded. So whenever you look at these roles, diversity departments in this instance, whenever you look at these roles and you look at how well they're paid compared to what you would reasonably say were kind of comparable roles in the operational side of whether it's a government department or a private business, you'll find that the diversity people, or anyone who's pushing and seriously enabling globalization and the feed-in mechanisms that underwrite the globalization project, such as spreading social disharmony in the Western populations and social division, gender division, sexual proclivity division, all that sort of thing. Those people that are pushing that and really advocating it, and they're on social media banging on about it. Some of those people are very, very well paid, or many of them are very well paid, because they're performing a service to globalization. If you're performing a service to commerce or anything like that, too fucking bad. You're just not going to get paid that well. So I think, if you go through that, you pick any company, and if it's on public record, you look at the salaries being paid to the diversity department and various people in it, and you'll find some very, very low quality people with fuck all education, ideological fanatics, and low IQ people to boot. And they're being quite well paid. When you look at a diversity officer, here's one. Here's a department in Australia, government department. This is a state government department, and they're involved in the medical field, I'll say. And now the people on the front line who are doing the heavy lifting and the hard yards for delivering medical services, they're paid. Even the group, the sort of leading hand, like I don't know, what would you call them, group supervisors on the ground, they're paid probably for every dollar they get, the diversity officer, an entry-level diversity officer is getting about $1.60. So that gives you an idea of the disparity there. So when we look at, say, something like the gender pay gap, dismiss it. It's bullshit. What we should be looking at is the ideological pay gap, where people that are delivering real value to society, such as the engineer building bridges, and people that deliver nothing. They destroy, they tear down, they infect with poison everything they touch, and yet they're being paid 50% plus more. You've been a Tacitus today. You're a Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.